Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. On behalf of the IPMA Young Crew, I welcome you to the GeCCo Academy, Episode 1. The Academy is an initiative by the Global E-Collaboration Competition team aimed to provide you, the participants and friends of GeCCo, insights on various topics related to online collaboration and projects in such environments. We will cover these topics during discussions with our experts invited to the Academy, and today we will talk with Miguel Carvalho and Melo, a trainer from Lisbon, Portugal, with over 25 years of experience. Because he worked with so many teams, he's an excellent partner to talk about teams and the various models of teams and how to deal with them. This is the topic of our today's discussion. If you want to find more about GeCCo, Miguel, or the Academy, go to our websites. And now we will go to the discussion. So, hello Miguel, how are you?
Hello, very well, fine, thank you.
Good. What's the weather like in Lisbon?
Summer.
Summer.
Yes. Nice weather to go to the beach.
Nice. We don't have that anymore in Warsaw. It's end of the summer. Yes, I want to thank you for finding the time to talk to us and share your insights on teams. We will talk today on teams especially. We talked before, and you told me that during the coaching and training experience, you had the opportunity to observe various teams.
Yes.
And so the first question, how would you classify these teams? What types of teams have you seen?
Well, things have changed a lot in the last years. So now there are many theories about that, but there's a current classification about teams where you can talk about traditional teams, distributed teams, international teams, and virtual teams. But they are not close categories. Sometimes these classifications can mix with each other. So you can have distributed in the virtual team or more or less distributed in international. So, I think things are changing so much and so fast that every month there's a new theory coming out. There's a new paper written about those things. So the world is changing.
Yes, so I guess we will never know everything about teams, and that's what makes this topic so interesting. And could you describe a little bit more about the difference between distributed, virtual, international teams and traditional team? What is a traditional team?
Well, traditionally, a traditional team is a team where every member belongs to the same organization and they work in the same location.
Mm-hmm.
So,
like in the same room or in the same city?
In the same city. Let's say in the same city, because then you're in the same building. But then you can have some slightly differences, because there's a common term when you talk about co-located teams. And a co-located team is when you bring people from different parts in the company, and you set up a team. They go, everyone goes in the same room, and they work close together. Of course, there are lots of advantages in working this way, because the informal communication is developed in this way. and that sometimes that brings speed to the development of project. Of course, there must be some rules and there must be some discipline, because otherwise you have a bunch of people on the same room talking about everything
Yes.
and not really the project. And well, that's not the desired objective, of course. But a co-located team may have a lot of advantages. But that's only possible when we are talking about a team where everyone comes from the same company, located in the same city, and it is possible to put everyone together in the same room.
Yes. I think nowadays it's not really that common, right?
Yes, it depends on the project. For instance, in a big construction project, it's relatively usual to create a project site where everyone goes inside, working on that place, on that same facilities, and that's a co-located team. So I've I had a participation in a highway construction project. It was the project site was in the middle of nowhere, so they have created a place for them to work, and everyone was what's the term? There was everyone moved onto that place, that location, and that way they could work together. Well, every day, all day, and sometimes even the weekend. And that brought lots of advantages, of course, because there were people from different companies in different places in the country. But that was a very big project that took 3 years, and so it was possible to do this.
Yeah, nowadays we don't have that many long projects. They are usually around 1 year, or at least from my field in the IT world, it's not really common to have such long projects. And the example you told just now, isn't this team not only co-located but also virtual?
Yes. So let me go through the four categories I told you before. So the first one is the traditional. The second one is the distributed. The distributed is more or less common. It's when you have a team where everyone belongs to the same organization, but they are in different locations. So the most common example would be a company with different offices along the country, and you have people in different cities working on the same project.
Yes.
And it's not practical, or it doesn't make sense to relocate people just for that project. You do that if you have a very long project when people are working full time on that project. On the IT and so many other areas, many times people don't work full time in a single project. Usually they have more than one project at the same time.
Yes, that's not uncommon.
That would be the distributed team. Then you have the international team. Well, that's more or less obvious. Is when you have a team with people in different countries. They could belong to the same organization. They belong, in fact, in an international team. The initial idea is people from the same company but in different countries. Big multinational companies, that's more or less common also.
Yeah.
And then you have the virtual team. Some might say that a virtual team would never be a real team. A virtual team is a team where people are not only physically distributed, but they also belong from different organizations. They came from different organizations. So, and that's why we called it a virtual team, because it's not really a team. Because you can always say that, well, if I'm a very good project manager, of course I will try to create the illusion that I have a single team.
Like a good teamwork.
Yes,
Experience.
I'll try to create the illusion that everyone belongs to the same team. And if I manage to do this until the end of the project, well, probably the project would be a success. But I know that when something goes wrong, each person will defend the interests of their own company, because they belong to different companies.
Yeah,
So,
and they have their own hidden agendas.
Yes, it's not really that hidden. It's obvious. You belong to company A, I belong to company B. We have to protect the interests of our companies, of the ones who are paying us.
Yes.
So it's not really a team. But then you can have a virtual team from people on the same country. They only belong to different companies. But you can also have a virtual team from people from different companies in different countries. And then the complexity begins to increase, of course.
Yes. So the GeCCo team would be a distributed and international team. Am I correct?
Distributed and international. Is it virtual?
Well, we do all belong to the IPMA family.
Yes. So we hope it's not virtual. We hope it's a real team.
Yes.
And that's
we all believe that.
That's the aim from so many initiatives that the Young Crew is developing, is to create one team, a real team, and not a virtual team where people are protecting the interests of their own small group.
Yes, we do all want the same thing. At least we try in all of our projects. And if you would be a project manager or a team leader of such teams, how would you deal with different types of teams? Would you have the same behavior towards a traditional or a distributed team, or would you adapt?
Yes, you really have to adapt yourself to the kind of team you have, because of course if you are working with a traditional team, co-located or even distributed, but if they are all people from the same organization, your organization, you can bring people together, and you can have face-to-face meetings, and sometimes, since people belong to the same organization, the hierarchy, it's clear, it's defined, so everyone knows what's their place in the organization, and I can adapt my style of leadership. It depends on so many factors, like the maturity of the team, the technical knowledge they have. Because if I have a very young team, a team that doesn't have much technical knowledge on the subject, I'll have to be not only a project manager, but also team leader. If I have a team with people who are experts on their fields, I'm not going to tell those people how they should do their work, because they know it better than myself.
Yes.
So then I can focus much more on project management not technical management. I can be a project manager, and I can put all my attention on managing the project and not the work which is done inside the project.
Mm-hmm.
But all this is much easier if I have people, if all people are from my company, my culture, my country, because we know the rules, we understand each other. The ground rules of the communication are more or less established already. Then, when you go to an international team, even if it's people from your organization, that means that you have people from different cultures. And that changes a lot of things. Because culture has a major influence on the way things are done. That's why you cannot, on those kind of projects, you cannot rely yourself only on a good set of processes that you are going to put in place to manage a project. Mm-hmm. You have to take into account the context.
So do you prepare yourself somehow for such teams? Do you read about their culture, or?
You should.
You should.
You should. I didn't have that experience, but I followed some projects like that, and I know from situations where there was not a good cultural preparation for the project manager, and that person had to deal with many different cultures, many different nationalities, and it was a real challenge, and it was quite difficult. And in some other situations where the company was aware of that challenge, so before starting, or at the start of the project, the first step was to prepare project managers and project management team to deal with the cultural diversity of the project.
There's an interesting,
there's an interesting academic paper I've just read some days ago, and they present some new terms that are appearing. One of them is cross convergence.
What is that?
It's a research concept, and it's about fusing together management practices from different cultures.
Oh, that's good.
It's interesting.
Cannot to backfire. I mean, if you take something from each culture, it can coexist well together or not. If we have cultures from opposite sides of something, you cannot take both things from the cultures.
Yes, sometimes it's very difficult, because sometimes it's not just a question of culture. In very big international projects where you have people really from all over the world, sometimes it's not only the culture, it's also the politics. And when we have people from 2 or 3 different countries with a really tense political situation between them, it's not easy to deal with.
Yes.
And sometimes, I think, thankfully, I never had a situation like that, but I know from people who had to deal with it, having people saying, I'm not going to sit on the same table as someone from that country. That's a different level of a challenge.
Yes.
It's quite difficult.
And you as a project manager have to deal with this.
It's very difficult. Because, well, you cannot sit them on the same table. You can put your fist on the table and you say, well, I don't care, you have to sit here because this is a project, you are working on this project, so you have to work together. That kind of way of dealing with a conflict situation hardly is the best one.
Yes.
Sometimes it's the only one, but you should avoid it if you can.
Yes. Well, thankfully, if you are a project manager, you kind of got to know your team members already, so you might have an idea how to deal with them.
You hope.
Yes,
you
I hope. Yes. But
because sometimes you only get to know your team members at the very start of the project.
Yes.
On virtual, international, distributed teams, sometimes you don't know the people you are going to deal with, until the very first day you start working with them. So you have to be getting to know them at the same time as you adapt yourself to the way we dealing with them, and doing all that at the same time, it's not easy.
Yes. So let's stop for a second with the distributed teams.
Yeah.
How do you prepare for such teams? I mean, sometimes it can happen that while you start a project, you have never seen your team members, and for some reasons, you are not seeing them yet.
Mm-hmm.
And the project started.
Well, the desirable scenario is that you should start your project with a face-to-face meeting. Mm-hmm. So that would be wonderful. If you can, even if you cannot work in a co-located environment, mm-hmm. if at least you can start your project with a meeting where everyone goes and meet each other, and they set the ground rules for project communication, and they share project objectives, and then you prepare some time for informal connection, like end of the day dinner or something else, or some kind of team building activity, something like that. And sometimes there are some kinds of team building activities that would be wonderful to promote the interconnection of people who doesn't know each other, and that could be wonderful. So that would be a wonderful scenario. Now back to reality. We know that this is not always possible.
Yes.
So if you really cannot bring everyone together to meet each other, well, you can, the plan B, you can always have some video meetings.
Like we have now?
Not the same thing. It's okay. Not the same thing.
Okay.
Because there are so many things that, of course, in a video meeting, we can look to each other's face, so we can try to interpret the non-spoken language, but you don't see everything. You only see the facial expression. Yes. You don't see the
way I sit.
The communication. Yes. Yeah, you don't see the way you interact with each other. There are so many things that are lost. Well, it's better than nothing, of course. Because the worst scenario, of course, it would be the one where people only communicate with each other by email, without even ever look to each other's face. So that's not so good. That's not so good, because even with people from the same country, from the same culture, so many times there are misinterpretations on what we write, because you send an email to someone and you think that you are being very assertive and very objective on what you are saying by writing, and then someone from the other side wouldn't write back to you saying something like, well, there's no need for being such harsh, so cold on what you say. So in writing,
we tend to be more mean than we want to be.
Yeah, it depends on people. There are people who have a very good capacity of writing in a way very clear, very objective, but not everyone.
And then there's the other side, the receiver. They also perceive the written text differently. So the same message can, the same text read by two people can be understood differently.
You always have noise in the communication.
Yes.
But on spoken communication, you also have noise.
Yes.
And if you have people from different cultures, people with different native language, like us, you are Polish, I'm Portuguese, we are both talking in English, but for each of us, English is not a first language. So we have to adapt our thinking and our talking to a language which is not our own. So we are never 100% sure if we have chosen the right words to say what we want to say.
Yes.
Because sometimes in our head we translate something in a way it seems right, but it doesn't work so well in a different language.
Yeah, and then I translate to Polish and it's not really nice. Yes. So communication would be the main difficulty with distributed teams?
I don't find a word in English. Well, yes and no. It is the main difficulty, but not exclusively to distributed teams. It's the main difficulty.
Okay,
in any kind of project, in any situation, even on a co-located team.
Okay.
Communication, it's always one of the main issues. Everything goes around communication.
So if we focus on communication, we might succeed in having a good team.
Sorry?
If we focus on the communication problem, we might succeed with having a good team.
We increase very highly our odds of succeeding. Yes. No doubt about it. That's not me saying it. It's written. There are so many studies, statistics, saying that one of the main reasons why projects fail is communication.
Yeah, communication I think we all seen this.
So
statistics, yes.
Yeah. So that should be our first concern, and then all the communications, of course, technically we can always create a communication plan. But sometimes when people look to project management in a most exclusive technical way, some might think that building a communication plan is all we need. It's not.
Well, it's just a plan.
Yeah, it's just a plan. And the plan it might be worthless unless you have the way to putting in in place, and then you follow it, and then you be aware of the changes that you have to take every time. Every time you identify a new stakeholder, every time your team changes, every time the temperature of your team changes. I usually say that a project manager has to take a how do you call it, a thermometer?
Thermometer.
Yeah, on your hand, because you have to be always measuring your team temperature. Because when the temperature becomes high, well, you should take measures.
Yes, and when it gets too low as well.
You should take measures also.
Good. So let's take some thermometers now, and let's measure our teams. I think we can summarize the discussion and go to the end. It was really nice. So
let me just add something. I didn't mention before. There's this is something I've learned many years ago. When we talk about teams, when you talk about projects, everyone talks about the project team. A project has a team.
Yes.
Sometimes, too many times, I've heard people talking about the project, singular, teams, plural. And then I say, whoops, okay, something is very wrong. Because if you have many teams in one project, it means that you don't have a team.
Yes.
So something is starting wrong. And then the thing I've learned so many years ago with someone's psychologist, friend of mine, who told me that the real team appears when you identify what they call the invisible frontier. The invisible frontier it's when people in an informal talk, what in Portuguese you call it the café talk. When we are talking with coffee talk, when we are talking with each other and we say that we something and they something, we, it's not department A, they are the department B, or we, it's not company A and they are company B. It's we are the project team and they are all the others that don't belong to the project team. So when there's this we in them, that's when you have the invisible frontier.
Yes.
And then perhaps you have a team.
Yeah. So I guess that's also true for every type of teams, whether collocated, virtual, or that's a really good example. I remember you telling me this before. I like that you remember to tell it also now, so that everyone else could listen to it. I hope we all have such teams.
I hope so.
Good. So, well, thank you again for your time. It was really nice talking to you.
Always glad to participate.
Yes, and hope to see you sometime soon, maybe at another IPMA event or Young event.
So.
Good. So take care and have a nice Sunday.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Nice Sunday for you too.